You don't have to do a lot to separate yourself. You're reliable, you care, you give a shit, and hungry, you're hungry. Humble and smart is kind of the way, we like to do it, similar to Patrick Lencioni. I mean, that's kind of how we do our hiring here, from the aspect to try and make sure people have those intangibles or they're coachable, and it doesn't even matter if they know the right end of the shovel.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Build, the podcast where innovation meets collaboration in the world of construction. We bring together thought leaders and industry experts to explore the cutting-edge ideas transforming construction equipment, supply chains, building materials, and workforce productivity.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by Faro, the revolutionary last-mile logistics platform, redefining how high-value, time-sensitive construction deliveries get done. Need it fast? Need it right? Faro.
Hey everyone, today we are joined by Joe Malone, Executive Vice President and Partner at Haydon, where he leads both the building and civil divisions, overseeing operations, strategy, and execution across one of the industry's most dynamic and respected firms. Through his commitment to accountability, innovation, and a people-first approach, Joe has helped shape Haydon into a company that bridges both vertical and horizontal construction with efficiency and integrity. Today, we're going to be exploring Joe's growth from intern to VP, his leadership philosophy, how Haydon drives operational excellence across complex projects, and the lessons he's learned building a culture rooted in ownership and collaboration. Joe, welcome to Beyond the Build.
Thanks for having me.
Scott's in a closet. I'm fortunate enough this used to be where my garden sat, and when COVID happened, my wife and I were sitting in the same room for more than 6 months. Working together, working separately, and then we both started to be on the phone with customers because we had some job shifts, and it just wasn't working. We couldn't be in the same room talking, and all right, we need another space. We're like, all right, we have this garden, let's get rid of it, let's build a shed, and then I turned it into a space. So
I know. Yeah,
but I understand, Joe, that you had to work pretty damn hard for your office.
I would say so. But from my perspective, it was always funny, at least this office that I'm in now. At points in time, never thinking that I was going to, it wasn't even relative in my head to want to be sitting in this office, right? Being out in the field, going to build projects, is still something that I say I miss. It's funny. I feel as you grow, get higher up in a company, sometimes you get further away from the reason why you did something, right? Why you got in construction. But from my perspective, and I think others, right, you find, at least for me, it's really rewarding now, the other things that come with that, specifically just dealing with a lot of the people, more focused on strategy. I would say plotting and scheming with the guys and girls about how we're going to build something at a high level, and managing people and trying to give them opportunity, per se, no different than what I was given, or, and at least present it out there. I mean, I think the minimum, I talk about this often, like, success, depending on how you look at it in someone's career, right? It's not even like I'm saying I am in mine, but in general, in the workforce, I think you don't have to do a lot, to separate yourself. You're reliable. You care. You give a shit, and hungry. You're hungry. Humble and smart is kind of the way, we like to do it. Similar to Patrick Lencioni. I mean, that's kind of how we do our hiring here, from the aspect of trying to make sure people have those intangibles or they're coachable. And it doesn't even matter if they know the right end of the shovel. But, they're willing and they care, and that's all you need. It doesn't matter construction or whatever business you're in. So,
yeah. And for those of you listening who likely don't know, the reason why I kind of immediately jumped into that is because, Joe, you have been with the same company, period. This is your one and only company. You went to school, you majored in, I believe it was construction management, and then you interned with Haydon, and that has been where you've been this entire time. So that's kind of what prompted that question. We're going to be diving in significantly more into that journey and kind of the pluses, the minuses, the things you would change if you could do it all over again and things like that. But just wanted to comment on that to give a little context.
Yeah, I went a little big windy on that first response for you, JP.
No, it's, I mean, that gets to the teeth of, like, you know, where you're at and why you're there. I mean, that's what it's all about. You know, people want to understand the why, not just like the how, right? But, you know, being with the same company, I did a similar thing before I pivoted and started Faro, was 20 years, 2 decades, right? Same company, moving up, seeing, like I always say, like, I know where all the bodies are buried on the ship, right? I have the calluses, and then also like watching the evolution of it change, and then personally change from, and you could probably speak to this, working in the business to now working on the business.
Yep. No, I think, to your point, Scott, the evolution is something, long days, short years. I mean, from where I started and where the company was at to where it's at now, I mean, it's crazy to look back on, reflect on, because a lot of exciting things have happened. You know, not only for me, but for everyone that has been a part of it. So to your point of working on the business, you know, that's definitely at the forefront now, of everything that's happening. But every so often, right, I mean, you have that desire, and sometimes, you know, maybe a couple things you want to work in the business on, you know, at least to go back to that. But I mean, a big aspect, I mean, when I started here, my first intern year, and it's always funny because I always debate, like, I think my first year was 2005, but going back to where it's at now, I think I was the 3rd intern. Matt Carpenter, our president COO, is the first intern that was here. So
oh wow,
it's kind of,
so the track. It's not necessarily a fluke.
No. And we have a lot of long tenured people here that have rolled into leadership.
How many people were at Haydon when you first interned?
Shit, maybe 100.
Okay, so it was relatively sizable then too.
Yeah, I mean, we had, and I don't want to say that, but I mean, a lot of those as today, it continues to be most of our craft. Adding to that number, you know, Haydon Civil Division started in 98, and I'd say I was here in 2006. So even when I was here, you know, some of the bigger jobs that we had were, you know, $500,000, and those were big jobs, and, you know, still kind of in the infancy of getting stood up, and the CMAR legislation was out, and we were starting to get rolling with that, just because we started as a vertical general contractor. So I mean, we definitely had some aspects to get into some of the self-perform pieces to get off jobs and to do different things. So the evolution, right, like I said, $500,000 job now, right, we're doing $100 million jobs, you know, from when I first started here. It was really cool to look at, due to just not only the growth, the structure, and then seeing people do a lot of different things and growing in their career as well. I mean, not only just, you know, individuals like Matt, myself. I mean, there's countless others that, you know, have grown and changed and out doing bigger and better things.
So from your experience, that growth trajectory with Haydon, was that kind of like a top-down or a bottom-up approach, where people saw the vision and said, hey, let's get into civil, or, hey, you know, we could, you know, attack these projects and do them differently, you know?
I think it was a combination with Gary Haydon, right, who's retired now. I mean, he founded Haydon in 91, and, you know, obviously he saw opportunity. I mean, he was around heavy equipment. I mean, he was a scraper operator. He kind of grew up in the trades. He was a ranch hand. And so he knew self-performed work. Had worked in the trades, and I mean, he loved it, obviously. So there were some opportunities that he found just kind of through client relationships and other things. On the first civil job was actually, the main one was outside of Las Vegas. Is kind of where it all started. And then came back and kind of built on that. We had a grading crew, and then that turned into a pipe crew, and so on and so forth. He brought in some other original partners that kind of helped build that aspect of it. And then fast forward, Earthscapes, which is our landscape subsidiary, they were, I think, started 2007-ish, 2006. And that was a sheer function of not getting off jobs, right? Because the last trade on there was landscaping, and everyone was struggling to close out jobs. So that's where that came into play. Fast forward another, 10 years, H3D was the virtual, now Origin, our virtual construction. And then fast forward, 2 years ago is when we rolled out Omni Electric, our electrical group. And they've been killing it too. And a lot of those were, say, gaps in the market, but core competencies that we had and people have here, right? And it's just, it makes sense. And furthermore, it was like, hey, we got some people that have been here that are known, respected leaders, and they're interested in doing some of this, and they want to take something and run with it. And it provides opportunity for a number of people here, right? Because, I mean, especially if you're operating Phoenix, so there's only so much market share per se. So like, we try and look at ways to be better and look at ways to provide opportunity, especially in it, like where there's what I would call a gap in the market from, electrical, civil, transportation, electrical was one of those,
What would you say were some of the key shaping points in your career? You kind of just mentioned like the key milestones of Haydon and its subsidiaries, over the course of time. What were your same pivot moments?
I think a number of them, it's working out of town on some projects, right, was more of a fortitude test on a lot of tough jobs, right, throughout early in my career. I would say the single biggest shaping point for the company was whenever we revamped our culture. And that happened 2017, 2018, and that really was driven by Haydon. And from that point on, right, it was difficult. We had, I would say, that the prior owners, partners in the business, we were a hard-nosed contractor, right? I mean, kind of the mindset of valuing relationships. People had, right? People had, but I don't think the value was put on that as much as it should be. And really getting that kick started, at least from my perspective, and a pivotal part in my career, happened then, right? Where, we really kind of changed how we were going to operate. And it wasn't the mindset that you're lucky to have a job. It's, we're all in this together, and we value relationships, and we value the people that we work with, because we all care. We all did, but it was something that I guess ignited the business from my perspective. And we put different people in leadership positions over the course of the next couple of years. And that was pivotal in the company's success and obviously our continued success.
Well, there's a dynamic that I'm hearing too. I take the roles of like mom and dad and not, comparing Katie and Gary together, because, I've met Katie, and super wicked smart, strong, right woman that like she's got it all together. But you look at from like Gary, like in maybe the partners, the ranch hand kind of mentality, right? The fact that you guys spread out and started seeing gaps and saying, hey, we can fill that gap, right? Rather than a lot of corporations, they don't even self-perform. They're just like a bonding agency, and then they rely on their subs to do everything. And even in this day and age, like what we do is we're like, hey, we're a niche, right? Similar to like the contract. We're wet utility. That's what we do. That's all we do. And a lot of big organizations. But to be able to spread out and say, hey, we're going to take all of this in, that's kind of like, I feel like almost the dad mentality, like, hey, we're going to go conquer everything, build the kingdom, right? But we've got to like make sure that we show up, we have discipline, we're consistent. And I know you have feelings, but right now feelings ain't getting it done. We just got to get this done, because if we do, we all flourish.
Exactly. And I guess furthermore, going full circle on this, right? I mean, we did a transition of what I would say ownership over. It was going to be probably take around 10 years. All that completed in just under 5, between the old partners and all of the new partners at the business. And most recently, kind of bringing it full circle, going back to what matters, who gets to share in the reward of this, is we went ESOP, right? We went ESOP, and because in its own self, to your point, Scott, yeah, I mean, construction is a tough industry, and it's like I said before. I mean, showing up and being reliable and caring, I mean, that's going to take you places. And I mean, even the aspect of everyone sharing that and having it self-regulate accountability, I think something is that we're big on as well, right? I mean, you create a group that culturally we're tough, gritty, we care, we'll go protect you. But the main aspect isn't if you do something wrong. I think of this all the time. It's not like, I'm gonna get fired. I'm living in fear of getting fired. It's like I'm living in fear of not. I don't want to disappoint anybody. That is so much worse. Like if someone is disappointed and I let them down, that is a motivator. At least I know it is for me to be reliable from that aspect. So kind of a similar aspect, but bringing it full circle around the fact that you're a team player and you just care. I mean, if you disappoint somebody, that's kind of the worst thing you can do, because you let them down.
Yeah, 100%. And from a leadership perspective, and again, I'm assuming, but I'm saying, when Katie came in, the different leadership style of empowerment, and right, and like, if we're gonna go out off the war, it's like, yeah, we're doing it because number one, I have a cause. Number two, I don't want to die. I want to come back. And number three, if I don't do what I'm supposed to, I'm going to get a ration of shit for it. Right. So you're doing it, like you said, based off of fear. And now let's say you have a leader that comes in and says, no, I want to empower you because I trust you. And I want the experience. Not that war is great, but you actually like going to work. And you're like, oh, I don't have to go to work. I don't have to make sure, that I don't do something wrong. But you're like, no, I get to go to work. And that really comes down full circle of the heart of gratitude. Waking up every morning and being super thankful for all the shit I get to deal with today. But I don't look at it as shit. I look at it as an opportunity. And when you have a leader that's fostering that type of culture and empowering people to say, listen, I value you. I trust you. You might be even smarter than me because you've been doing it longer, but like, let's go build it. Build it how you want to build it, and let me know what you need, and I'll reinforce you with, troops, food, and ammunition. Like, go.
Exactly. And that, I think that empowerment piece, to your point, is everything. I mean, you're going to have to give out trust. And I grew, like, the aspect of how the company has evolved. It was, the expectation is that you knew everything about every job down to the penny, right? And that can happen. That you could operate like that in a certain size business, right? Not anymore, right? You try to do that, you go crazy. You're going to inhibit growth. You're going to inhibit process and controls just from having that controlling aspect. I mean, that's a capper. So, obviously it's not like, oh, we let everybody, you still need process, procedure, and something that is scalable, but you're going to empower those individuals and those teams to operate within bounds, and like you said, support them through those efforts of what they need, and let them go do it. Let the leash out. Like, that's how they're going to grow. That's how they're going to enjoy what they're doing. And that's how they're ultimately going to elevate themselves to continue to, take opportunities in the company, whether it's here, whether it's other states, whatever it may be. It's kind of that's how life happens. It sure doesn't happen by someone being over top of you, telling you what you need to do all the time.
Yeah. That being said too, how do you hold yourself accountable for being responsible to work on the business while still stay connected in the business with the people?
Yeah, no, I would say that's a good question. And part of that is having dedicated work blocks for myself. It's so easy to go back down into that mode, especially if there's an issue. We have quarterly business planning aspects that we're going to bring individuals in to kind of go over certain sectors and a number of different metrics of how we're operating, one as a business, and then also carving out specific time to assess, analyze, and strategically put in plans for where we're going to go. And when we have goals, and like for example, some of the pillars of success that we outline here, and what our both annual 3-year, 5-year, 10-year goals are, and having a plan around that, and we write it down, and you see it every day, and you make sure, hey, what am I working on today is going to be working on the business, right? There's what I would call rocks that I have in a long list that I'm making sure that those are at the forefront, and like hold myself accountable to make sure that I get them done within the time frame that I set for myself. But it still is important. Presence is important as well, right? Like going to see everybody. And I'd say that's the toughest part right now, based upon our growth, is getting to see everybody, and getting out to engage. So we'll have monthly, or what I would say, project review check-ins, and different opportunities to get out to job sites to engage with the teams and be a part of what they got going on, which is what I really enjoy from that perspective. So
yeah.
You
said rocks. Are you guys an EOS company by chance?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm just curious because using rocks or growth rocks is something that can stem from EOS. But
I think he was thinking rocks like the heavy things that he's got to like take care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not so much, but yeah, everything that you're saying, I know that I'm challenged with as well, right? Because like when you're a CEO of the company, you want to empower your people, but you want to stay connected. So the goal is to be like the chief engagement officer, where while they're working right now in the business, your brain's 3 years ahead. So you're like, yep, processed all that, but I can't go in and do it because if I do, I've made the mistake where they're like, stay out of it. You broke something. Like, we have this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can't go back and put my hands in that. But when you do have those conversations, you mentioned the word presence, right? Physically showing up is one part of that presence, but physically and like mentally, like listening is a whole different side of presence. And we talked about this on our last podcast with a guest. The ability to engage with an individual and truly listen to what they're saying, not already thinking about your response before they're done. And if you can give them that platform where it's like, hey, I don't have all the answers. Yes, I've been sitting up in my corner office with a window thinking about where we believe the company should go based on all of your feedback. But I'm not here to just tell you what we're doing. I'm also here to saying, like, does this align, and should we be considering other things rather than the template that we drew up?
No, that's a fantastic way to do it. And outside ideas are important. I look at it from idea generation. It's not, hey, this came up in the ivory tower over here and everybody's going to do it. No different than building a project, buy-in and alignment, right? You could have the perfect schedule that you put together and this thing's flawless, but it doesn't mean shit because nobody's bought into it or a part of that plan. I would say that, we have a number of peer groups and, certain committees as well that's an engagement platform for those that want to be engaged with it to help steer, right? I mean, we'll call a steering committee for certain aspects of the company. One, for example, is safety, right? We want to, everyone always, it's the most important things in the construction industry, bar none. And it's not, hey, we're going to sit up here and say everyone needs to be safe. Like, that's not it, right? A true program is behavioral based and getting everyone to understand it from that aspect. So, hey, let's come in, let's bring superintendents, let's bring superintendents from each subsidiary, let's bring other leaders and emerging leaders and put them on a steering committee, okay? So that they can not only help with idea generation, but they're understanding some of the, maybe getting a peek behind the curtain of everything that goes on, and they're a part of it. And that idea generation can then go to form, I don't want to say another policy, but maybe changes or improvements to what we do with our safety plan and our safety program as a whole. So to your point, right, I agree wholeheartedly, and that's just one example of getting buy-in the right way, whether it's changing our software, Procore or Viewpoint or whatever it may be. There's a lot of involvement from different people at different levels throughout the business to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and we're making a decision that is best for the company, not just some willy-nilly deal that we thought up.
Yeah, like here, some new initiative. Like, okay, so which one are we doing in the next 6 months? Like, we're always on some new initiative that someone came up with, and they're like, we didn't even follow through with the last one we did. So are we just now? What's the new one?
Yeah, on these big initiatives, man. I mean, I made that mistake before. It's like, oh yeah, I could do all this stuff, right? And it's like, well, none of it's gonna get done at that point in time, So it's some of the advice to give to the other guys. It's like, well, we do this, this, and this, and I was like, well, you better just pick one of those because that's a big lift.
Yeah, I found that hyper focus on a singular objective tends to be a bit more successful than a little bit of focus on 10 objectives. For sure, yeah. And it's difficult too, because like me, especially, like my brain I kind of sometimes go with wherever it takes me. And it's like, oh, I'm going to work on this a little bit, going to work on this a little bit, this a little bit, this a little bit. And then it's like, okay, well, this big project that's more important than all those little bits, you've done the same amount of work on that maybe. And, it feels good though, when you do finally like, all right, you know what, I'm just going to grind in on this one thing until it's done. But yeah, it is, that shiny squirrel syndrome is what I call it. Where
I think the construction industry as a whole, regardless if you have ADD, it creates ADD to it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. And here's the thing, like, here's the trick, right? So we're doing something in tech. It's a constant evolution, right? Oh, I want this button. I want this feature. We want to do this and be so cool. And our customers tell us, it'd be really cool if and so you get all these shiny objects. We have this project 1%, get 1% better. And our team just went through like, okay, what's the revenue impact on this project? Should we do it? How do we prioritize? But as you start scanning the list, you look at when you're like, oh, well, this is easy. We should be able to take care of this. It's only going to take us a couple days or whatever. And then all of a sudden, those, one or two couple day projects turn into like 6 or 7. And then we just get so busy picking up the low hanging fruit that we're just like, no, like, I know it's easy, but we need to focus here. This is where we need to stay. Stop picking up more fruit in your basket because now your hands aren't available to cut the tree. Like, we got to cut the tree and then everything will fall down. Right?
Exactly.
But it's really easy to get sidetracked with those little wins because you feel like you're making progress, but it's not what our mission is.
Joe, I wanted to pivot back to something you said very early on that I've continued to think about. It seemed to me that you might have been a little surprised at where you've ended up now. You know, like in terms of like thinking back, putting yourself in your younger person's shoes, imagining where you would end up, and that where you are isn't necessarily where you potentially expected yourself to be, or maybe it isn't. Correct me if that is the case. But the question is, from where you started to where you are now, is that where you wanted to be, and kind of like why? You know, it's like, because you meant, and I bring that up, sorry, I'm going to expand on this question even more. The comments that you made were like, you know, you seem to enjoy being in the field, you know, early on, and you know, naturally your current role has you out of the field more than you are in it. So yeah, why are you where you are now, and was it where you expected to be?
Yeah, I guess from the perspective, and I say that getting into the industry, it wasn't like I'm getting into construction to eventually be a construction executive, right? I mean, it wasn't like I had some roadmap plotted out for myself. You know, I grew up southwestern Pennsylvania, small town, blue collar town. My dad was a mechanic. My mom she did hair. She was a hair beautician, and just I would say maybe naturally was conditioned to the blue collar mentality, right? Hard work creates opportunity. So it was, I don't know where this path's going to get me. I enjoyed not only the work, but the camaraderie of the team, right? I mean, and don't get me wrong, doesn't mean that there wasn't people that came and go and you got some bad apples here and there on your team, but in the grind, I would say maybe that's just kind of how it was. And obviously, right, everyone has career goals, and setting those, and those evolve based upon how things progress. But you know, after doing something for so long, it was kind of like, yeah, there's an ambition and aspiration to do bigger and better things at some level, but you don't know what you don't know, right? Like there wasn't like I had some great plan outlined of how to be an executive whenever I was coming into the industry, or maybe even I hadn't even been around what that really meant.
Did any of your like the promotions, did any of those surprise you then? Because it sounds like since you didn't have a plan, it sounds like you were just a good, like kind of following your own advice of being reliable, showing up, caring. Were any of those promotions like, oh, I'm being rewarded for just, you know, having these values that I just inherently, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, the mindset that we had operate in for a while was you're doing the job well before you had any level of title change or promotion, right? You're operating in that space, and maybe, hey, taking the initiative and above beyond your maybe your job description or what others would do. And I wouldn't say that, you know, I wasn't aware that I was noticed, you know, maybe doing these things. It was you're operating in that space. So like, even like a PM capacity, right? Like when I first technically became a PM, it was an individual, right? Like saying, okay, well, we're going to officially change your title, even though you've been doing that for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was very thumb on kind of.
So it's a very like organic kind of growth.
Yeah, you were kind of like voluntold. You're like, okay, guess what? You're going to be the new foreman. Now you're the new superintendent. Like, oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess maybe that's OG way of thinking of it, similar to some of the guys we have now, or the older craft guys or whatever it may be. But like that's the thing. Even for me, it's challenging sometimes. It's like, okay, I'm brand new to the industry. In 5 years, I need to be a PM, and the year after that, I need to be a senior PM, and then I need to be a director, and then I need to be this. It's like, I advise against that. I'm cool with having goals of where you want to be, like, but putting a timeline to something just from a title standpoint, It doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah, it's like your schedule that you mentioned, where if you build the perfect schedule, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work that way.
It could be sooner, it could be later, right? I mean, that I think opportunities come in the strangest ways. You just need to be ready to pounce on it, right? If the door opens and you're hungry for it, go and get it. But having a place that has doors that open for opportunity and room for growth is one aspect in that. Performing at a high level, it's one thing, right? In construction, the weight used to be put on who was technically strong, and it still is. You need technical skills, but as you move up and you're managing and facilitating people and strategy and other aspects, and not over here analyzing, someone's paving schedule and AM and PM lot spreads related to, the tonnage of asphalt that they came down for coring, per se, at this point right now. Individuals do that, but you need to have some people skills. You need to have that aspect. It's no different than making an operator a superintendent, because he's a fantastic excavator hand, and then he goes to superintendent, and that doesn't have a broader aspect of transitioning into that. So that was my advice to some of the guys. Like, man, I can't put a timeline on it. I do know that there's opportunity, and going back to old Teddy Roosevelt, right? Especially in the world right now and everything that we do, comparison is the thief of joy. That's what a lot of people always look at. They're like, oh, this person over here and this person over here. Is like, you worry about you
It's
control
the,
what you can.
Unfortunately, the victim
That is so
mentality
critical.
that's been, I wouldn't say indoctrinated, but it seems like the easy way out. And, I look at like your experience, and I've seen, not to the level, some similar, but it's always been the same theme. Like when people elevate themselves, it's character and experience and opportunity all converging. And then you hope in that conversion that there's some sort of mentorship that you're going to gain either through that journey or once you get there, to say, hey, this is how we take your character and your experience, this opportunity, and mold and shape you from who you used to be to who you're going to become. And I think, as you could probably mention, the evolution of yourself, your journey is saying, yeah, could I go back in the field tomorrow and start, swinging wrenches and operating equipment? Absolutely. I don't lose it. But I now see that my impact on the business is to mentor people and develop the next set of leaders so that they can have the same story that I had. Because I'm one dude, and I'm not trying to basically conquer the world by myself. I need to figure out how do I reinforce 500 other dudes that can cover my 6.
And that's what's to your point, Scott. I mean, that seeing like interns that had been under me and now they're right in senior level positions. I mean, it's just, I can't be happier, I mean, like, doing things right and doing the right thing, right? I mean, it's just kind of like success and everything else, or company success and individuals that grow in their career, right? You can just boil it down to a couple of those basic things, and it's super rewarding to see. And to your point, being able to continue to do that, 500, 600 more people, right? To really build something special and continue it down a path is extremely motivating and fulfilling in its own right.
I'm curious, now that you're a leader and you kind of grew into this leadership position, not necessarily with that plan in mind. I want to know, do you like yourself as a leader? Would you work for you? And this is a self-reflective question where it's like, yeah, where do you find places to improve, and what do you know that you're just crushing it?
I would like to say yes. I mean, I don't know what the right answer is here. I would expect that I would work for myself. I don't ask people to do things that I haven't done myself, right? So it's, at least that's the approach that I feel that I have. And I also have an extreme relation to a number of what I would call the field people, field guys, craft guys. Just because, I mean, that's how I was brought up. and like as a throughout childhood. So I like that. And honestly, right, like I want to be honest and open, right, with everybody. There's nothing there. I would say maybe genuine and honest is how I'm going to approach something, and that can be maybe giving tough feedback to somebody from an accountability standpoint, and or giving them the appropriate amount of praise.
And sometimes as a leader, that's a tough spot where sometimes we get really good at the criticism or whether constructive or not. Sometimes we get really good at saying, okay, hey, we're going to correct this, we're going to correct this. And sometimes we forget, hey, we got to make sure to point out when they're doing a good job just as well, too. I've noticed that with some leaders as well, where, it's you got to make sure to have both sides of that.
Yeah. And, the old criticize in private, praise in public mentality.
Yep.
Right? When it comes to maybe really tough things.
Or the compliment sandwich. You're doing this really good. Here's the stuff you need to work on, and you're doing a great job. Here you go.
Yeah. But no, I would like to say there definitely are things that I identify to work on, for sure. And that's an evolution. You got to have some internal goals that you set for yourself. In as much going back to the empowerment piece, I do like to empower individuals, but I want engagement opportunities. So like even in-person meetings, for example, like we'll have some, and there was a period in time where, a lot of the guys were like, I don't want to come to this meeting, or
should have been an email.
I don't want to do that. It's like, well, and then I explained, well, like, I know that we don't need this, but like, to be honest, guys, this is for me. like I want to see.
I want to see your stupid faces.
And they all like the meeting, right? It's like, doesn't mean we're in there screwing off the whole time, but like, I could read the update, but like, I want to see and engage with, and then even give you guys updates, right? It's cascading information down, and then me pulling some up and cascade it, and then they can cascade it down. So it's a two-way street on some of the meetings that I have set up with individuals. Some of them, I'm revamping, but I'm definitely not a big death by meeting person. I feel like we got so many meetings going on throughout all aspects of everything and anything, and it's huge for me to use that as an engagement opportunity. Just even check on how someone's doing. It's not all about, hey, how are we tracking towards the completion date on this, right? It's caring about that person, because you spend more time with them than you do your own family.
Oh, 100%. And, we talk about mental health, right? And people see mental health as all the acronyms, right? ADHD, ADD, or like whatever, like it's not about the acronym, right? To your point, it's a very simple, like, how are you doing? Not just like, oh yeah, we're finishing on time. And they're like, no, how are you doing? Like, how's your family? Like, what's going on with you? And it's hard when you get to 500 people, right? You can't have those intimate, but you can kind of get a spider sense of saying, hey, you know what? John he just seems a little off. He's been like that for a week too. Like, you think there's something going on? And then come to find out, yeah, he's going through a really nasty divorce. Okay, well, how do we support him? Right? Not like, what to do, but okay, that has a weight on him. I got to try to understand that. So there's a little bit of grace that has to be given, not just salt all the time.
We have individuals that have been here. I mean, well, I guess I'm one of them, almost 20 years, and others that have been here, longer, and even some of the craft guys. So that span of tenure, there's going to be something bad that happens. There are multiple things, right? There's going to be a lot of personal issues that happen, right? And, those are going to happen. It's how you respond to those and how you handle those, knowing that some people are going to have a bad day, week, or month. And what do we do to help get them out of that funk? Because they're important, and that matters. It's just not hey, it's not all about the work or the business all the time. It's about the people. Like people are the business. So someone's having a rough time or a rough go or something personally that's happened to them, like that's a big deal to respond the right way. And I don't really have patience or anything related to some businesses and some of the stories that I've heard from other places, that how they treat someone in that situation. And we've gotten people that maybe have gotten discarded for XYZ reason, and they come over here and they're a star, right? Because all they need is, some mentorship, guidance, and support on some aspects that happen to them in their personal life.
It's one of, I think, the most challenging human experience that we all go through, whether it's the relationship with our spouse or it's our kids, our community, and our work. Just being like emotionally intelligent, especially in an industry, we're all dinosaurs. I'm going to include myself, right? We're knuckle draggers. We're trying to evolve, but we're all about the battle. Like, hey, accomplish the mission. But it's like, well, who are you going to lose in the process? And you just lost a really good, guy because you were all about the battle. And so if we're not taking a perspective to saying like, and again, I'm talking for all men right now, is like, it's not weakness to be vulnerable. Right? It doesn't mean you stop fighting. Right? We're not saying that, but learning how to surrender and being able to lean on other people and be like, hey, Joe, dude, I got nowhere else, but I'm going through some really bad shit right now, and I would just like your opinion on this. And you're like, dude, I didn't even know. Like, yeah, like, I'm available. They always think, oh yeah, I'm available. I can go talk to Joe whenever. And then like, oh, he's probably busy. But breeding that culture and like, hey, I'm going through some skids right now. And you're like, dude, let's figure this out. I think that's the reinforcement, or why people, to your point, and Matt, like, why you've been there for 20 years, right? That shows the legacy of the organization and the people that are building the organization. Because at the end of the day, and I'm going to turn to my faith right now, I believe we all want to hear, you've done a good job, my good and faithful servant. Like, that's what I want to hear at the end of my life. That's the dash and the legacy. When you read my headstone, who cares about my name? Who cares about the dates? It's like, what does that dash mean to people that knew me? I would ask you, and is you kind of already mentioned impacts in the conversation, but when you move on to other things, what do you want the people that are still there to say about you?
He was always here for me, right? He cared about me. He cared about the business, and putting others first, I guess, is you do that, things just tend to take care of themselves, right? And from that perspective, so I'd say something down those lines.
Yep. That's the calling of a servant leader.
Yep.
And if you can do with the humility to people, bring people in, while staying unapologetic about what your convictions are and what needs to be true, right? I think that's what we're all searching for. Well, hey man, this has been fantastic. We don't want to take up too much more of your time. I mean, we've already been talking for what, JP, like almost an hour?
Yep.
So we didn't know if you had a hard stop or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I do have to go.
Gotta get you to another meeting.
Yep.
Well, speak of which, we got a 20-year anniversary, right?
Very cool.
So, for one of our guys, our equipment managers out at our shop, and we got a little
bit of celebrating to do.
A little celebration and gift out there for him.
Nice.
We're gonna bring
That's
today.
Cool.
So,
well, we won't keep you from that.
No, I appreciate you reaching out, JP, and Scott. Good to talk with you again too.
Yes, sir.
But I do appreciate it for sure. We'll have to get together more often.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you all. Well, everyone, that is a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Build. We took away some real valuable lessons and insights, and I hope that you did as well.
If you enjoyed this episode, We would ask that you subscribe so you can never miss an update. If you're a thought leader looking to innovate in the construction industry, let's talk. We'd love to connect and hear your thoughts.
You can find Beyond the Build on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, plus anywhere else that you listen. And if you'd like to learn more about how Faro is changing logistics in the construction industry, please visit our website at faronow.com.
Once again, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, be humble, serve others, and make an impact.